What's up, everyone? Welcome to the RotoGrinders NBA Game 6 breakdown of the NBA Finals. I'm your host, TJ Zwarich. We've had some good luck so far in the NBA Finals from a DFS standpoint. We're looking to keep it going into Game 6. Helping me break it down, we got our guy always here in the Showdown Streets, Head Chopper. How you doing, Chop?
Hanging in there, getting ready for blare that music a little more, man. I want to hear it. I want to hear it, brother. I like it. I mean, it's there you go, Thursday. It's starting to feel like football here. Blaring the music, Thursday night showdown. Won't be long. No,
Isn't it Wednesday? Oh yeah, Thursday, tomorrow night. 'Cause that's when the game is. You're right. You're absolutely right. I dated that. So then, just there.
It's all good. They know we're trying to get it out for them early, but this is coming down, man. Like, at the most, we'll have another one on Sunday. So this is just we're about to hit those dog days of summer. I'm just going to try and enjoy, hopefully, these last two games. Hopefully 2 more games in the NBA, but it should be fun.
NBA season ending is kind of when I allow myself to start drafting NFL best ball teams. Like, that to me is kind of like the season of, okay, it begins when NBA ends, not heavily, but like if I'm sitting there bored, got nothing to do, which I don't actually know if that's going to happen anymore now that I have a child. Like that may just be a thing of the past.
It'll happen more than it did before. It'll happen more than it did before, bro.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm good with that. If I'm kind of just entertaining her, I can have a draft going at the same time. You know that 30 Rock meme where it's Tina Fey is like, oh, it's been a long week. And Alec Baldwin's like, Lemon, it's Wednesday. That's how I feel right now. Like that's kind of how I'm feeling this Wednesday, Thursday, as we break it down. But either way, I'm thankful because we got a great crew to break it down with us, and joining us as well, we got Kyle Murray. How you doing, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been fun talking about these NBA Finals games with you, and unfortunately, I think this might be our last one. But hopefully we do get 2 because again, more opportunity to make some money and do some betting and stuff like that. So definitely hoping for a Game 7, but it's looking like it's going to be an interesting, game for this one. I do think Thunder close it out, but excited to break it down, and hopefully I'm still, fingers crossed for Game 7.
Let's start diving into it. I'm with you as well. I have been hoping just, from a Canadian side of things to see my guy SGA win an NBA Finals same year as he wins MVP. So I have been cheering for OKC, but I would like to see the Pacers win tonight so we do get ourselves a Game 7. They are going home to Indiana, so hopefully that helps them out. But we have a bit of a wrinkle in this week's breakdown because Tyrese Haliburton is questionable with a calf injury. Even if he does play, we saw in that last game after he got hurt, like that was not the same Tyrese Haliburton. He struggled. Every single one of his shots was short. He did not look like the same guy out there, finished with a pretty terrible line. And honestly, I kind of thought it was a coaching error to have him back in there for the end of the game as OKC started taking it to him. They looked a lot better with TJ McConnell. And I'm like, in a normal game, I wouldn't say, yeah, Haliburton's had a bad game, put McConnell in. But he was not the same guy after that injury. So I do think we have a very interesting wrinkle in this one. We'll talk if Haliburton plays, if Haliburton doesn't play. And it's kind of an interesting look at salaries because I noticed each game, DraftKings seems to get tighter and tighter with the pricing. And FanDuel gets looser and looser with the pricing. Like, you can quite literally do whatever you want with your builds on FanDuel today. DraftKings, it's a little bit tougher, but still some cheap options to make some lineups work today. Let's start on the DK side of things. Before we even get to the captain position, Chop, what's your read onto how this game is going to go? How are you planning on attacking it from a DFS perspective?
Yeah, I'm not sure we're going to get a real news on Haliburton until the very end, till it's way too late to do shows or worry about surveys or anything. I think it's going to come down at the very end. So just kind of got to make that decision, and that's the big one. That's a huge turning point in this game, like for fantasy purposes, because obviously if he doesn't go, boy, it opens up a lot for a lot of different players. And if he does go, he's probably not a very viable, piece to the DFS puzzle. But man, he can squash a lot of those other guys too. Like he can just squash all their value. So if he does try to go, and so that's the big tipping point right there. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's going to swing it for me. I really would have thought that this thing was setting up for 7 games, and that Pacers role players at home, they're going to get this game. I think they can compete at home with this team. Without Haliburton, or with a hobbled Haliburton, it might be the end of this team. It might be Cyrenaica, man. But yeah, but I'm still going to lean on the Pacers being at home. And so those role players standing out more to me than the OKC role players. And then we'll see about SGA and those other guys. But I think I'm still leaning Pacers role players here because of the home factor.
If you're watching us on YouTube, either live or after the fact, hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You're probably already subscribed, so make sure you hit the like button on the video. Helps us out a ton. It's free content for the NBA Finals. We got you. All we ask is that you get us right back by hitting that like. Kyle, how about you? You have any idea of how many lineups you're going to play yet? And how do you think this game's going to play out?
Yeah, haven't decided how many lineups I'm going to play yet. But in terms of the game flow of it all, and honestly, I think the way the Haliburton situation might impact how much I play, because from where I'm sitting right now, best case scenario from a profit making standpoint is Haliburton plays, and then everybody sort of dismisses it as if he's going to be totally fine just because he's active, and then you have an edge based on the idea that Haliburton would be limited. In the projections right now, I went with Haliburton for 32 minutes. That was more so just to align his props where the markets are. I think it's pretty interesting because, we all saw it. Haliburton was not even half himself out there in that last game. But the markets right now have him at a 13.5 point projection is kind of where it's the industry consensus right now. That's a hefty line in my opinion. Like that's a number that I'm going to be on the under if he's active. Again, we've seen some reports floated around today where it sounds like Carlisle is preparing to play without Haliburton. These reports essentially mean nothing in an elimination game in the NBA Finals.
Of course he is. It'd be incompetence if he wasn't.
Yeah, and like pretty much I would say in any report that we get from now until we get like a huge Shams, like that's very, very clear cut, right? If Shams says he's not playing, he is playing. Until then, all the news doesn't really matter because NBA injuries are already very difficult to predict and very difficult to judge and assess when determining someone's playing status. But in the playoffs, it's even more difficult because guys are going to be playing through injuries. Teams will be floating out, news that a guy is less injured or maybe more injured than he actually is. So a lot of gamesmanship with the news there as well. So for the news that we're going to be getting up until we get the actual clear-cut status of it, pretty much means nothing to me. And I think that's a good thing because, again, the way I'm going to be kind of assessing it is if Haliburton plays, I'm going to be going on the pretense that he's going to be extremely limited, and that's going to elevate some of these guys here behind him and around him, and that will only make, in my opinion, those guys much better options. And then I'm just going to hope that the public sort of just ignores that and doesn't factor in that as much just because he's active. Because again, it just did not look good for him at all. And a lot of these guys behind him, they looked good. And like you mentioned, it's tough to hold that against him because he's clearly playing injured. But we've seen guys do this in the NBA Finals before. Obviously, the first guy I think of is Kevin Durant with the Achilles. So hopefully, Haliburton, if he does play, he gets through it. But again, the best way, in my opinion, to make money is to hope Haliburton plays and hope that people just sort of dismiss that news for Game 6.
It's hard not to immediately go to the Durant side of things where it's like, oh, playing through a calf strain. Oh, damn it, Achilles injury.
Yeah.
And you really, really don't want to see something happen like that to a young star, especially when we did just see the Jason Tatum thing. And on the other side of it, it's game 6 of the NBA Finals. If there's ever a time to play through injury, it is this one. And so I have to imagine, like, if it's about playing through the pain, I have to imagine he's playing. You know, like, no doubt about it. But I got to imagine most of the tests they're going through are how close is this to the Achilles? How much is this going to affect the Achilles? Is there an increased risk of injuring the Achilles if he's playing in this game? So that's I got to imagine, like, with obviously no medical knowledge whatsoever, that's the type of thought process they're going through over there. But Chop, we know we're going to be loading up. Like you said, you want to load up on Indiana role players. Kyle, I'm with you that even if Haliburton plays, I want to play it on the side of he's not going to be 100%. So let's load up on these Indiana role players. Seems like we're on the same page from a utility standpoint, but Chop, I'll throw it to you first. What are you going to do at captain with the value that we're likely to have if Haliburton doesn't play? And then even if he does, some potential value. I got to imagine SGA will have maybe his highest game ever in terms of ownership at the captain position. Are you going to be going to SGA up at captain once again, or are you going to be looking to go elsewhere?
Yeah. So I know we cover both sides here. I'll start off with this in that like there's no difference for me in the sites as far as who I like and don't like in this game, just because of what you mentioned earlier. Looking at the pricing, just one's a $60,000 cap, one's a 50. So if we take that into consideration, like SGA is basically the same price on both sides because of the cap number. Tyrese is just a tick more expensive on FanDuel, and every other player in this game is cheaper on FanDuel than they are on DK. So I'm not even like you said, it's a free for all over there. So I'm just taking players I like on both sides. And as far as the captain is concerned, yeah, we're in Indiana, and we're in game 5. I've run the numbers. I'm like Kyle here. I've run the numbers now. I'm a big numbers guy. By the time we get to game 5, man, I have to say I've been on SGA in captain the whole time, and it's fantastic the first 2 games. You could have got away with it in game 5. Games 3 and 4 in Indiana, not really. You weren't going to win with him in captain. And now we're back in Indiana. And the one thing that stands out to me through 5 games, the optimal player in this entire series, whether it be captain or utility, like the best player so far, salary, based on salary / performance, has been Pascal Siakam. He's had 2 games where he's hit the optimal. And when I say optimal for a game in NBA, it's not the exact number 1 optimal overall. It's that little cluster between 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 that are separated by a point or 2 points. Like there's like no difference in there. That's kind of the optimal range. If you hit one of those lineups, then you're good. You're gonna win everything. So he's made his way to the optimal a couple times in this series, and the times he didn't, he was the optimal in utility. Like he was optimal captain a couple times this series. Optimal utility. Pascal's crushing it, man. And a hobbled Haliburton can only help him. I would imagine it helps him. Maybe Haliburton's a great assist guy for him, but I got to imagine it only helps him. So I'm now kind of hedging here off of SGA a little bit. It'll be a little bit of SGA, who's still fine. And, maybe a Haliburton not playing or being hobbled actually just increases his value so much in this game because the defense they have to play around it. Like there's a whole trickle-down effect that could happen if Haliburton doesn't play. Maybe they say, Nimhart, we can't afford for you to guard SGA full-time. Now we got to let somebody else do it because we don't want you getting in foul trouble. We don't want you wearing down. You got to be our real point guard. Haliburton's not playing, so maybe SGA gets just far better matchups if Haliburton is out or hobbled. That's one aspect of it, but I'm splitting it between SGA and Siakam, I think, in this game. I think those 2 are the guys that could really get you there. If I'm going any guys that are fringe, obviously Jalen Williams has shown the upside to get there in the captain spot, so he's a fringe guy. And the only other guy I'll mention, and this is a captain, I'm going to roster him in captain or I'm not going to roster him at all, and that's Chet Holmgren. His upside in these games is really big, but when he doesn't reach that upside, he's not even worth a utility spot. It's weird, like, and his whole value this series has been tied to, believe it or not, being able to get to the free throw line. Like, all of his numbers are just the same. He can rebound on this team. He can get defensive stats on this team. He's not going to shoot great from the floor on this team because he doesn't really get into the paint very much. He's going to shoot a lot of three-pointer, and he's not a great percentage in this series just because of the defensive matchups. But if he can draw fouls and get to the line, he can end up in the optimal as the captain. So Chet's the one wild card that he's either a captain or he's nothing at all for me. But it's SGA for me. It's Siakam. Those two are split 50-50 for me in captain spot. And barring like plenty of time notice saying Tyrese Haliburton's not playing, and then we can rerun the numbers and we can really think about it, I just don't see myself going to any other player in this game as a captain.
I love this call about Siakam in the captain spot on this one, especially on DraftKings. Maybe not on FanDuel where it's just so easy to get SGA, but on DraftKings where pricing's a little bit tighter. I love the idea of putting the fourth highest priced player here, Pascal Siakam, especially if we're playing with the strategy that Haliburton, might play, but he is going to be hampered. So I really like this call here. He went off in that fourth quarter last game, and I was really sad to see it happen because it looked like I was going to be taking down the big DraftKings GPP with a few of my best friends. With a lineup of, I had SGA up top, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Aaron Wiggins, Mathurin, and McConnell. McConnell had just finished going off, and I was like, wow, if Chet Holmgren has a big fourth quarter, this could be, I could be taking this down. And then Pascal Siakam just went absolutely berserk. Still managed to break even, so it's still a fine day taking us to the next one, but was a little bit tilting seeing him go off. I would be happy to see it this time, though, because I'm with you. I like him in the captain spot. Kyle, what do you think of Siakam in the captain? Would you be going SGA up top, or are you okay with a pivot?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm probably not changing my stance too much. Like, I still think SGA is the optimal guy, and I think it would be crazy to completely fade him, but again, I think there are paths to other layers of success at the captain spot, and I think that's even more so if Haliburton is out or significantly limited. If he's out, like, TJ McConnell has upside to be a captain winning option if he's going to play 26 plus minutes. If it's a game like we saw, the two games in Indiana where SGA had 46 or fewer fantasy points, if McConnell plays 24, 25 minutes, he has 50-point fantasy upside. He's that good of a fantasy producer. So I do think that sort of angle brings in a few extra names there with the captain winning MVP type upside. I think it's interesting. I love the Siakam call. 50 points in back-to-back DraftKings games. He either has 20 points or 19-point double-double in every single game but one. So he's been fantastic in this series. And, he doesn't really get the headlines as much as, a guy like Jalen Williams. Like, look at last game, Jalen Williams scored 40 points. One of, I think, like 9 or 10 people in NBA history to have 40 points in the NBA Finals. Obviously, that's historic and a fantastic game. 56.5 DraftKings points. So it's like all of his production comes from scoring. Siakam is able to do it in so many different ways. And we still haven't really seen Siakam's like scoring ceiling yet, I don't think, in this series. That I came into this series touching on how I thought he had 20 plus shot upside. The most he's taken in a game in this series is 15. He's done that 3 times. He's been very consistent, and he also has 14 shots in a game. So that 14, 15 shot attempt sort of feels like a floor. I thought even if Haliburton was fully healthy in a spot like this, I thought he had upside to take 20 shots in a game. And now with Haliburton banged up, I surely think that that's definitely on the table. So I love Siakam here as well. Love that, Chop mentioned that SJ has not been as good in Indiana. So I think that's a good call as well. Makes Siakam and other captain options even more viable. So far this season, with Tyrese Haliburton off the floor, in terms of usage rate rankings, which it could be difficult to assess if Haliburton plays and he's limited. But for guys who are, on the roster right now, Ben Mathurin is first, TJ McConnell, then Siakam, then Obi Toppin, then Andrew Nembhard. Again, I don't think it's a huge red flag for Siakam because he just does so many different things, and his usage rate doesn't need to be super high to cash in because he's such a high efficiency scorer. But I do think it bodes well for guys like Mathurin and especially McConnell, who would benefit minutes wise and usage wise. So, I mean, McConnell's going to be a guy who I'm just going to be slamming in at everywhere possible, and I think I'm even going to be aggressive on playing him in the captain for this game as well. So I think it's going to be SGA, Siakam, TJ McConnell, and then a little bit of Jalen Williams in the captain for me. But McConnell's going to be a guy that I'm aggressive on just because he's a guy who I think if he does play 24, 25 plus minutes, he has the upside to not only be in this range from a point per dollar perspective with some of these guys, but also if it's down games for all of these guys across the board, I think he has 40 plus fantasy point upside. So I love TJ McConnell in this spot. That's pretty much where I'm going to be from a captain pool perspective.
Love the McConnell at captain call. I think that's a really, really strong idea, especially in a single entry setting. I think if you do it in the super large GPP, yes, McConnell's going to be much lower owned than any of the other captains. But if you play McConnell at captain so that you can go SGA, Jalen Williams, Pascal Siakam all in the same lineup, that build will probably be quite duped. But you're running into even fewer people doing that in a single entry setting. So I really love that strategy there. I'll once again shout out the idea of running a Nembhard captain, even though he was priced up on DraftKings. Price went down even more on FanDuel, went up on DraftKings. I still think it's viable because I think there's a good shot that we see if Haliburton doesn't play, Benedict Mathurin go into the starting lineup, and then a situation like Chop said, where they go, hey, Nembhard, we need a little bit more from you offensively, so we're going to take you off of SGA on defense. We'll put Mathurin on him. You go run the offense. I think that's definitely a possibility in this one, so I would throw him in the pool, but I'm not as aggressive on him because I probably would like McConnell better as well. I feel like if we start a build here, Chop, with Siakam and then we go McConnell and Mathurin, Neesmith an option too, but this is our either Haliburton doesn't play or Haliburton does play and is severely limited. You can go McConnell captain, you can go Siakam captain. Would you try in this scenario of a build? Would you try and jam both SGA and Jalen Williams and then do a full out punt, or would you be picking one of the two?
That's a good one, man. I don't know. I'd probably in Indiana, I'd probably lean towards just picking one guy, and in Indiana, I think I would be SGA. I also want to throw something out there just for large field GPPs. Even if Siakam gets ruled out, or we think he's going to be severely limited, let's say he can play, but he's not going to start, which means basically he's not going to play, whatever. And everybody's going to be jamming in McConnell, and he probably is a great play. There's also the chance in that scenario. It's a lot easier for McConnell to come in and be good real-life player that same game where Haliburton gets hurt and OKC cannot adjust to him fast enough. If they've got a fresh, 3 days to think about this and adjust to McConnell, there's a chance that he's not going to be this big, massive 35-minute guy that Rick Carlisle knows that maybe this is just GPP stuff now. Rick Carlisle knows, man, we can't do that because they're going to exploit him on defense so much. So maybe we get more guys like Ben Shepherd playing in the backcourt and things like that, and not as much McConnell as we think. Just spitballing for GPPs, just in case anybody's worried about that. But there's a chance that McConnell, if we're looking at the guys like 90% on Thursday and 90% owned, and we want to find a reason to fade him in very large fields, there's a chance something like that happens where he just doesn't get as much as we think because OKC knows they can exploit him on defense, and Carlisle knows that, so he's not going to play him as much. But back to this build. I'd split between SGA and Jalen. I probably prefer SGA in this game.
On that note, I do actually really like the idea of setting a rule in lineup HQ, minimum 2, maximum 2, play exactly 2 of McConnell, Mathurin, and you can include Shepard in there if you want, and Nembhard. And just say 2 of these guys are 2 of them will close, 1 of them won't. The one who doesn't, probably between Nembhard and probably between Mathurin and McConnell, but there's a situation where if this game gets ugly, they're both in there. We'll have a good game and play 30 plus minutes. And so if it's Mathurin, it's because he's probably in there for his defense. And if he's in there for his defense, it probably means Nembhard's having a good game. You don't want to play Nembhard, you go McConnell, Mathurin. I just feel like 2 of those guys are going to have a really good game. 1 of them won't. If Nembhard's still on SGA, it's probably going to be McConnell and Mathurin who have the big fantasy output. So I feel like that's kind of how I would want to be rolling about it today. Kyle, what about this mid-tier range for you? Who would you be looking to prioritize between, Miles Turner has got a price decrease. Caruso is still up there, but not quite as pricey. Nembhard, Toppin, Hartenstein. Obviously, we got McConnell kind of in tier 1 here. But outside of him, where would you be looking to prioritize next?
Yeah, Nembhard would probably be my favorite mid-tier option in this spot. I think even if I'm so high on McConnell, I think both of these guys have the ability to both play and play well, even on the floor at the same time if Haliburton is going to be out or even limited. For Nembhard, in terms of guys who are still on the roster and playing in this series right now, Nembhard has the biggest increase in usage with Haliburton off the floor. I think that is very different for him compared to Siakam or McConnell if Haliburton's playing, but just very limited. I think if Haliburton is off the floor, Nembhard's going to be playing more of a natural point guard at times, and that's going to help him. But if Haliburton is on the floor and Nembhard is, getting more usage and whatnot, I think Siakam and McConnell will see more of a bump there just because they're able to create their own shots more often. But Nembhard, no matter what, I think this is a spot where could see him play 38 plus minutes here if Haliburton is out or limited. And again, I do think it gets a usage bump as well. So he's probably going to be my favorite in this mid-range, along with McConnell. Caruso I still like here. I know he had the down game in game 5, but typically guys who are performing really well in the series and then have a down game, and you can kind of bet on a bounce back. You usually get some low ownership. And I mean, he's still at 8 shot attempts, 1 for 8 from the field. So volume's been good for him. Still like Obi Toppin. It's very clear at this point, Miles Turner, they're looking to do whatever they can to not play him at significant times. They gave Tony Bradley randomly like 12 minutes last game. And that benefits Obi Toppin, even though it didn't necessarily come out in the scoreboard or in the box score. Last game only had 20.5 DK points, but still think that benefits Obi Toppin in the long run. So those are probably my favorite options there in the mid-range. Also, Ben Mathurin, once again, I think he's a good option here. It's still a spot where if I'm playing Ben Mathurin, I'm probably not super high on Aaron Nesmith and vice versa, just because these guys have their minutes very directly correlated. So I would just keep that in mind. And then Isaiah Hartenstein here at 5'4", back in the starting lineup the past couple games, played in 20-plus minutes. Had that bad game in game 4, solid game in game 5, 23.5 DK points. I don't think that's his ceiling, though, if he's going to play 20-plus minutes. I do think he has 30-plus DraftKings ceiling. Again, great rebounding matchup. He's not going to do a whole lot on the offensive end, but it's a great rebounding matchup. So I do think if he can luck into a few baskets, he does have that 30-point upside. So Hartenstein I also like here at 5'4".
If, say we get Haliburton not playing, would you still be making that same type of rule with Mathurin and Nesmith, or not worry about it as much, especially if they're both in the starting lineup?
I don't think they would both start. I think McConnell would likely start. And if they didn't start McConnell, I don't think that they would go to Mathurin in the starting lineup. I think that we could even see something weird where like Ben Shepard starts. So it's probably still going to be the same rule for me. It seems like they probably want to keep Mathurin off the bench. And Naismith has been losing out on minutes to him when they need scoring production. I think that if they're going to win this game, they're going to realize they need that. So it's probably still going to be – I probably wouldn't be as strict about it if Haliburton was completely out, but I would still feel pretty confident that I would want to keep those guys mostly separated, or at least keep that in mind when building lineups.
I can see the Ben Shepherd thing too. We'll see what happens. I feel like they'll keep McConnell off the bench, but we shall see. That's something we'll know before lock, regardless. Chop, how about you? Who are you prioritizing in the mid tier? And then give me your favorite punt as well. As we saw, like you mentioned in the previous game, you'll like the OKC guys if you think they're going to win. And lo and behold, both Aaron Wiggins and Kason Wallace had really big games. And then, like Kyle just said, we saw Tony Bradley get some minutes at 1.6K. And even though he's not a very good fantasy producer, Ben Shepherd could see some extended minutes here. And at 1.2K, that could be useful.
Mid-range for me, Caruso's mid-range now, and I think he's one of my favorites in that range. He's had a really good series, and some big games, like three really solid games that helped you compete in a GPP with his outcome. So Caruso's in there. I know Miles Turner has, like, there's a possibility that he could have a good game. Like, you never know. I never say never, but boy, he just has not really delivered in this series, and I don't think he will deliver. So I'm not on Miles Turner. If we're calling Nembhard a mid-range player at 6K on DraftKings, he's definitely my favorite as far as the possibility of what could happen with him if Haliburton is limited or out. He could have a monster game. You want to call Toppin mid-range? Toppin's fine. I'm probably not as much on Hardenstein as Kyle is, and that's fine. Everybody does their own thing. McConnell's 5K. Call him in that mid-range, so he's definitely going to be good. So in that particular territory, Caruso, Nembhard, Toppin, I think are all good. I'm gonna probably avoid a Lou Dort style player as much as I can. We've talked about his splits home road, and he just struggles on the road. He struggled on the road this series. He had like one game there. I think it was game 3. Lights out to start the game shooting. Lights out. He finished with 19 DK points. Like, he just doesn't have – I don't think he has much upside on the road, so I'm going to pass on him. Then you said one guy, low range. Obviously, Benedict Matherin's good, but the lowest guy salary-wise that I would entertain playing in this game, well, we'll see what Ben Shepherd, how that happens. But prior to the Haliburton stuff, shakeup, Aaron Wiggins has had 2 games this series where if you put him on your roster, 2 out of 5 games, he hit the optimal, man. Like, things have to break his way. He has to hit shots. Maybe it's a blowout. Maybe, he's getting that late 4th quarter run, even if it's just the last 3 minutes of a game. But Aaron Wiggins has as much upside in this series as a lot of the guys we've talked about. And he's only 2,800, so he's probably the cheapest guy outside of Ben Shepherd, who I won't play if they say, oh, Haliburton's 100%, he's fine, he's great. And I'm not playing Ben Shepherd. But obviously if that's not the case, then Ben Shepherd's on the board. But Aaron Wiggins is the cheapest guy.
Kyle, anything else you want to mention before we transition to FanDuel?
Yeah, I was thinking about after we were talking, and I went back and looked at some games where Haliburton was out to see kind of what they did starting lineup-wise. And Mathurin did start in the game. It was March 19th, so long time ago, and obviously things and dynamics changed, and obviously McConnell's playing really well, so I do think if Haliburton's out, I still think McConnell has a chance to start, but Ben Shepherd played 26 minutes in that game off the bench, and McConnell only played 18 minutes, so that is an interesting layer there. Again, Ben Shepherd was looking like he was about to be out of the rotation last game, and McConnell led the team in scoring at one point in the past couple games, so I do think I necessarily wouldn't take that as the gospel for next game, but it is something like Chop mentioned, where if you wanted to add that game theory layer to it, and say this is something that has happened before, it could happen in this spot, especially if McConnell isn't scoring or if he is a loose end on the defensive side. But yeah, it is worth noting that for me, I would probably retract my statement on Mathurin and Neesmith together. If Haliburton is straight up out, I would probably be fine with both of those guys now because I feel like their minutes would be, less correlated. But then I would transfer that to probably Neesmith, Mathurin, and Shepard. I think all three of those guys could potentially eat at each other's minutes wise. So if you're playing more Shepard, probably hurts a guy like Mathurin. Neesmith would probably feel safer from a minutes perspective, and vice versa. So that's probably where I'm at. Just after looking at that game.
I'll piggyback on that. If Ben Shepard gets the start, Andrew Nembhard, it would be a stone cold lock for me because that would tell me that like Ben Shepard can get lost on offense sometimes, but he's an adequate defender. They would probably use him a lot more on SGA and give Nembhard a rest on defense so that he could take on a lot more responsibility offensively. So Nembhard would be a lock for me.
I think I honestly feel that way even if it's anybody other than McConnell, like if it's Benedict Mathurin, like I feel like they would be doing the same thing because we've seen in this series that it doesn't really affect Mathurin's energy levels and what he does on offense because since he's just such like a go guy when he's covering SGA. And so I kind of feel like it would be the same thing as if it's anybody other than McConnell. If McConnell starts, I don't like Nembhard because Nembhard would be, without a doubt, just locking in on defense the whole time. But if it's one of these other wings, I think Nembhard becomes a really, really good play. Let's make the pivot over to FanDuel where not as much analysis needed here because it's genuinely nuts how cheap everybody is. If you throw SGA at the MVP position. Now, I guess I'll lay it out as you play SGA in the MVP position for every reason except for you don't think he will be the leading scorer. Because you don't do it from like I talked about it last game. I thought even if SGA is the leading scorer, which I'm pretty sure this was the case, he slightly edged out Jalen Williams, but he was not the optimal MVP and captain because Siakam had a great game. Jalen Williams had a great game. SGA had a great game. You needed 2 to 3 of them in a lineup to succeed. And so because of that, somebody else was the optimal MVP and captain. In this one, on FanDuel, everyone is so cheap. You can plug in SGA, Jalen Williams, Pascal Siakam, and you have 3,200 remaining per position. Well, that's not enough, right? Who can I play for 3,200 and below? Oh, Aaron Neesmith's 3,200. Toppin's 36. McConnell's below 4K. Nembhard is only 4K on DraftKings. So you're for sure playing 2 of SGA, Jalen Williams, and Pascal Siakam in every lineup. You are for sure playing SGA, Jalen Williams, or Pascal Siakam as your MVP, unless you think like straight up TJ McConnell will be the highest scoring player in the game. Andrew Nembhard will be the highest scoring player in the game because salary is just absolutely no issue. Chop, what would you be doing here at over on FanDuel?
I'd start off by locking in SGA as the MVP. He's been the leading fantasy player in 3 of these 5 games. In one game, he wasn't because Haliburton caught lightning in a bottle and scored 57 points or whatever it was in game 3. And in game 4, he wasn't the leading scorer because Siakam went crazy and he just missed out on Siakam by a handful of points, just like a basket or something like that. So he's definitely clearly like by far the leading has a leading opportunity to be the best fantasy producer in the game. So I think I gotta lock him in. Where I try to get different is I'm leaning towards Siakam over Jalen Williams. I don't think I run all 3 of those guys together. SGA, Jalen, Siakam. I think I'm going to sit out Jalen Williams to try to be a little different over here and fill out the rest of the roster after that. But SGA up top is a stone cold lock, man, especially if we're going to get slightly different, even if it's just a few minutes worth of different defensive assignments for this game. Yeah, they're going to have they're already kind of like struggling to contain him, doing everything they can. If they can't have a full Nembhard on him, like 100% focused on defense rather than offense, then he's going to exploit it. He's a stone cold lock.
agreed with you on that point. I think there's maybe a situation where I would consider like a Siakam MVP lineup. Uh, but even then, I'm still absolutely playing SGA in the utility position because it's just so easy to in this spot. Kyle, how about you? Any other thoughts on the FanDuel MVP position, and then lead us into, like, I guess all that really matters is who would you prioritize 4K and below? Rank your top 3 on FanDuel.
Yeah, no real differences in terms of the way I'm looking at the MVP spot. The pricing makes it pretty easy to get all these guys in. And to your point, like even if SJ has a bad game, which he has had in the 2 games in Indiana, he's still like the likely option to be the highest scorer. There are guys that can definitely compete with it, but even on down games, SGA is still likely to lead the game in scoring. In terms of guys, 4K and below.
Apologies for cutting you off. I feel like last game was a perfect example of Jalen Williams was the guy. He put up 40 points. He had 10 plus rebounds. He was incredible. And SGA just quietly outscored him. Finished the game with more than 30 points, had over 10 assists, had like 4 blocks, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 5. 4 blocks. He just gets there.
And yet, with all that, like you're looking at all the cluster of optimal lineups up top that were really good. He's still with that great performance. He was about the same as Siakam in those same number of lineups had Siakam at captain. So that's a ceiling game for Jalen, and he barely was optimal captain.
Yeah. So with all that being said, I don't think I'm doing too much different at the MVP spot. And in terms of the guys who I like most at 4K or below, I mean, I've obviously been banging the drum for TJ McConnell, and I think it's interesting that we talked about who we would like more if McConnell's coming off the bench. Obviously Nembhard would benefit from that, but to be honest, I would probably also like McConnell more if he's remaining on the bench, because I think that probably keeps people off of him. And when he is on the floor, it probably means he's subbing in for somebody who's probably an offensive weapon, and that will amplify his usage. But also, I think it adds to the scenario where, okay, he's going to project for 18 to 20 minutes across the industry if he's remaining on the bench. But then, the game goes weird. Maybe Haliburton can't finish the game. Maybe they need offensive production, and he pops for 26 plus minutes. And that's the game where he, has the upside to score 40 plus fantasy points. So if McConnell's coming off the bench, I still like him, and I probably like him even more from a game theory perspective. But in the FanDuel pricing right now at 4K, Nembhard's probably my favorite option there. McConnell would definitely be my second favorite. And I still think McConnell's ceiling is higher than Nembhard's, but Nembhard's probably the safer option there at 4K. So those are my 2 favorites. And then Obi Toppin right there behind those 2. So Nembhard, McConnell, and Toppin is how I would rank those guys in the sub 4K range.
I think for me, it would be Nembhard, McConnell, and then Mathurin at 2K. Like, just so ridiculously cheap over here. I don't think there's any need to mess around. Like, unless you're playing a ton of lineups, I don't think there's any need to mess around with the Kason Wallace's and Aaron Wiggins's, just because the price difference isn't there between them and the indie players in this one. Chop, rank your top 3 sub 4K players. Then we'll feel some things in our plums and get out of here.
4K, I don't know. That's a tough one. TJ McConnell is just to compare. McConnell takes up 10% of your cap on DraftKings. TJ McConnell takes up 4% of your salary cap on FanDuel. So, boy, that's going to be an ownership game in large GPPs. Do you really want to, you could really separate yourself from the field if you were to fade that. But, man, it's going to be tough to fade on that one. Nembhard, fantastic. Caruso's been the one of the only role players for OKC that's been home road matchup proof. He's been pretty consistent in both arenas. So, yeah, Nembhard, Caruso, McConnell, followed by Mathurin. Yeah, I think the overlying factor is give me SJ up top, give me Siakam on that lineup, a couple of these lower guys we just talked about. And just to be a little different, I might hang out in the mid-range with a spot or so. So that's where I'm at. Oh, fill it in the plums. You want to fill it in the plums?
I do, and I got a question for you first though, because
Okay.
as you and Bridgewine in chat are talking about adding Nemhard to your favorite teams, I started thinking about the same thing. Andrew Nemhard for RJ Barrett. Who says no?
Really, honestly,
You think it's
Indiana,
the Pacers?
Yeah, I think the
Indiana,
Pacers say we're all
Indiana
right.
probably says no. I mean, I think RJ Barrett's cool, but Nimhard just fits a specific role, man. In today's NBA, it's just tough.
He's
Tough
that
to get a
Derek
guy like
White
that.
prototype.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah,
Good
and
I
that's
stuff.
exactly what I want on the route. Would fit so perfect with Quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think for the Pistons, because he mentioned the Pistons, that would be difficult because then you probably have to figure out what you're going to do with Ivy. But yeah, I actually, speaking of Derek White, I saw this trade offer and it was like Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, and 2 first-round picks for Derek White. I was like, geez, Derek White is pulling that kind of weight right now in the NBA. That's just crazy. I think
that's
honestly
the
with the
thing that
Desmond
I
Bane
feel like
trade,
if you're the Celtics, you got to consider to maybe get under that luxury tax with
yeah,
Tatum potentially taking a while. But I think a lot of that depends on they got to take a look at the trade deadline at will there be a chance he's back for playoffs this year? If so, you keep your team and you pay the money. If not, you got to I think maybe look to do a couple a mini pivot, not a big pivot, but a mini pivot at bare minimum. I feel like Drew Holiday probably the guy that probably misses the cut there. But Chop, who's breaking the slate? Who are you feeling in your plums for the game 6 of the NBA Finals?
There's a lot of moving parts here. So I reserve the right to change this down the road. But as of right now, with all the information at hand, I feel like we're finally going to get that massive, explosive Andrew Nimhart game. So Andrew Nimhart, I'm feeling it in the plums.
If Haliburton is out, I want to go all in on Andrew Nemhard. I'm with you. If Haliburton plays, and even if he's just trash, but they're in that starting lineup, I want to go all in on TJ McConnell because I think McConnell off the bench will be huge. And I think if Haliburton doesn't play, I just feel like there's no in between 12 fantasy points and 48 fantasy points for TJ McConnell. Like it's going to be one of those two things and nothing in between. Kyle, who you feeling in your plums?
Yeah, for me, I mean, obviously, I do think McConnell's going to be pretty popular, regardless of Halliburton's status. So I'll take it to the next level and say that McConnell and the captain or MVP, or maybe not MVP, not on FanDuel, but McConnell in the captain slot is a guy that I like. I think that's the spot where, like you mentioned, you're just not going to find many guys who are going to have lower captain ownership, who have that ability to compete in that 45 plus fantasy point range, especially guys down there from a price perspective. So I like McConnell in the captain spot, and then a little bit more of a contrarian guy. I'm gonna go to Hartenstein again. I think we still haven't really seen him pop for a big game yet. He's had a couple of low 20s games, but again, I do think he has that 28 to 30 plus DraftKings upside. And again, we haven't even seen him crack double-digit rebounds yet. I think he does that in this game. So I'm taking Isaiah Hartenstein as my field in the plums utility guy.
I really like that call. He started 2 games in a row now, and he looked really good in this past game. Like not just him specifically, but OKC's offense looked so much better when he was on the court, just because it frees up him setting screens, frees up SGA so much more than when it's Chet Holmgren or when it's somebody else. They started switching to just like the Jalen Williams pick and 2-man game at the end of that game, and it worked a lot better than with Chet Holmgren setting the screens.
Yeah.
I think Chet's got to put on a little more beef before he becomes a big screen guy. But having said that, that'll do it for this breakdown. That was a long show. I'm surprising it took that long, but there was a lot of different scenarios to go through with Tyrese Haliburton potentially missing this one, or even if he plays, potentially limited. So thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Smash that like button on your way out. If you are joining us live, you got 1 hour break here, a little bit longer than that, and then you got Kyle right back for Grinders Live with Dean. I will be behind the scenes, and then we got Kevin Roth, Christy, and Cheese coming through for crunch time. So a really, really great squad today. Come through for some MLB DFS. That'll do it on behalf of myself, Chop, and Kyle. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Good luck in all your contests. We'll see you next time. Peace.